Well, okay, here we go. a little more difficult than we thought. As you might be able to see, we got some snow last night. I don't know, I'm gonna try this. If I get stuck down here, you're gonna hear a grown man cussing like crazy. Oh, I better put my seatbelt on in case there's any kids watching. Or officers of the law, right? Okay, moving this just a little bit. Yeah, it's cold. And my dog is coming along today. And oh my gosh, she just loves charging through the snow. I'm going to tell you a story about this dog, but I won't do it until we're done talking about basketball, football, whatever. So that if you hate dogs or you just can't stand any story that doesn't have to do with a ball sport, I won't waste your time. And when I get to that at the end, you can just bail, and that'd be fine, and no problem. But it is Tuesday, February 6th, 2 days after Illinois played at Ohio State, 2 days after the Super Bowl. And what a crazy basketball game. I mean, I wrote this the other day, but these box scores don't make any sense. I mean, or the play-by-plays, if I tell you that they went over 11 minutes without scoring a single point, and they got out-rebounded 45-22, and their best player, who's the presumptive Big Ten player of the year, had the game of his life with 35 points and 13 rebounds, he would say, well, how much did Illinois lose by? 40? And with 3 minutes, a little over 3 minutes to go in the game is tied. So, you know, a lot of things don't add up, and that's, you go back and review some of their games, that's not the first time we've said that, right? And, but Illinois played, I thought they played brilliantly. The first 10 minutes of the first half were almost, and building a 30-15 lead. They passed the ball, they moved it, they reversed it, they got open shots, they hit shots, they defended, they forced turnovers, they just did an awful lot of things. And then they kind of got away from it, and they stopped working for those threes and just shooting some, and it was frustrating. And then Keita Bates-Diop was fabulous, just terrific. He was wonderful, and their big freshman center was pretty darn good too. And they came back and won that game. And yet, you know, you can look at it any way you want to. If you consider all the circumstances, you might say, oh man, it's really disappointing they didn't finish that off. I won't argue with that. But you might also say, going in against the 17th ranked team in the country that's won 10 of 11 Big Ten games, you know what, if Illinois is tied with a little over 3 minutes to go, I mean, that's a good thing, right? We saw what happened the last time they were on the road at Wisconsin, and they lost by 25. So, you know, I wrote about this morning, and you know, Trent Frazier's playing well, and really well, and Kipper has been playing well. The other day he got in some foul trouble and wasn't able to do as much. But you know, there's really been two guys that have really struggled with their confidence: Mark Allstork offensively, and Mark Smith across the board. And the other day, and really the last two games, Mark Allstork has kind of found himself offensively. He had 19 points at Ohio State, and that's his high point production for the season since he's been at Illinois. That's what he averaged per game last year at Wright State, and people who have watched him have said, how did he ever do that? And well, he did it kind of the way he did the other day. He made some threes, he got to the free throw line, and that's a big deal. You know, this is a guy that shot over 200 free throws last year at Wright State, and he hasn't been getting to the free throw line. I think he's lost confidence in his shot, and I think he's lost confidence in his ability to get the ball inside without turning it over. And as a result, he's kind of stopped doing it, or he's, you know, the results just haven't been very good. And I know that he's played pretty well in practice, and Brad told him, look, you know, stop overthinking this thing. Just go out and be who you are. And he's done that the last couple days. I don't know, is that sustainable? You know, we'll see. Wisconsin Thursday night at the State Farm Center. As for Mark Smith, his problems have been both offensively and defensively. He got off to a good start offensively. We remember the 21 points he scored in the victory over DePaul, and And then he had a good game, double-figure game when they beat Missouri on December 23rd in the bragging rights game. But he's really doesn't have confidence right now in his shot. He's not been taking it inside the way he was early. I think he's just not comfortable doing it. And then defensively is really where he's had his biggest struggles. And then you throw on top of that the fact that he was the player hit hardest during the flu bug, really affected him for about 5 games. And then the other night against Rutgers, he got smashed in the eye, had to go to the locker room, had blurry vision, and you know, came back, and Brad was a little reluctant to put him back in there because he wasn't 100%. Anyhow, you know I see on Twitter people saying, you know, this kid's a bust and he'll never amount to anything. And hey, you know, I don't tell people what to think, but I just would remind people that there's been so many guys who didn't have real great freshman seasons and who were disappointing freshman season, and who turned out to be terrific. And you know, Darren Williams was just here. I know I looked up Darren's numbers as a freshman. He was a 55% free throw shooter. He averaged he's averaged about what Mark is averaging, 6 points, a little more, and he started 30 of 32 games. Mark isn't getting that kind of playing time, and hasn't earned it, to be frank. But man, don't give up on this kid. He's a great kid. This wasn't a guy that Illinois is the only school that took a flyer on. You know the story. You know, Michigan State, Kentucky, Duke, Ohio State. I mean, the list of schools that was after him was enormous, and not everybody was wrong about him. And it's just going to take him a little bit of time, and but the thing it's going to really take is some more confidence, because clearly, to me, that's what's been missing so far. And I'm watching my dog here. Here, I'll see if I can pull the camera down and maybe we can get a little bit of a look at her. Elf! What are you doing, baby? There she is. You okay? Want to go run? Come on. Get this put back up in its little holder here, and then close the windows because it's cold in the back. So he needs to find confidence. Mark Allstor finally found it for a couple games. We'll see if he can sustain it. I think it's been a factor with a lot of players. I think Michael Finke struggles with it, and you know, Michael's just battled and fought and tried to do the best he can, and I think Aaron Jordan has struggled with it, and then you've got Trent Frazier, who's, you know, you could make a list of things that he could do a little bit better. Confidence isn't on that list. He's absolutely fearless, believes he'll do whatever, and man, oh man, you just got to find a way for him to transfer that to some of his teammates. They play Wisconsin at 8 o'clock Central Time on Thursday night, a rematch of what was their worst game of the season. And Wisconsin's had some struggles. Illinois made them look awfully good. I don't think they're as good as they looked the night that Illinois ran into them up in Madison, and I think it's a game Illinois should win. I think they should bounce back and win that game. So we will see what happens there. I'll be over there tomorrow for Brad Underwood's press conference. Hopefully talk to a couple players right before practice, and then back to the media room, because Lovie Smith's going to be in there to talk about his second signing day, his second cluster of recruits to sort of add out onto this 2018 recruiting class. They signed, you know, they got commitments from 3 guys over the weekend, including a quarterback. Rod Smith, their offensive coordinators, obviously had an impact already, and I think that's really great news to see that, because they just, you know, they needed help recruiting, and they need to get that offense going, and they needed more bodies at the quarterback position. And if Coran Taylor from Peoria signs tomorrow, then all of a sudden, you know, you've got 4 guys that will be in training camp, and with still the possibility that you bring in a 5th-year transfer if that's what they choose to do. So that'll be interesting to see tomorrow. Get a little bit of an update on Lovie's beard. The pictures I saw of him on recruiting visits in California within the last few days, it looked like it had grown out a little longer. And also would like to hear Levy talk a little bit about Brian Urlacher's selection into the NFL Hall of Fame. I know he was campaigning for it and really happy about it, and you know, a first ballot guy who he has a great deal of respect for as a player and a coach. Now I'm going to try to turn around here in the snow and not get stuck, and it'll be a good time for everybody to cross their fingers and try not to run over my dog and try not to drive out into the into the cornfield here. Or I'm sorry, this was beans last year. It'd be corns this year. And okay, this is working out good. And the reason I'm turning around is I get up there. There's another house up here a little ways. I don't have anybody that lives near me really. But then we have to turn. We'd have to get out on the road, and I can't take her out on the road because she'll chase after a cement truck or something and get in trouble. Okay, a little dog story. This is an Australian Shepherd. Her name is Elphaba, named after the if you saw the stage production of Wicked, or have read the book, Elfie, as we call her, was named after that. And we had her for a couple years, and she used to be an outdoor dog, so she would live outdoors. You know, we'd make it possible for her to get in the garage during the really harsh weather in the winter and lay in there on a bed and all that kind of business. But and she got really freaked out by storms, and we didn't realize the extent of it. And one night we had a heck of a storm. Wind, blowing rain, it's just unbelievable lightning and thunder, and she freaked out and she took off and she went through the corn or bean field. I don't remember what was there at the time, and the next morning she was gone. And you know, you fear the worst because, you know, we live out in the country. We got a road out there. People drive too fast on it, and you know, she's a herding dog. And so, you know, sometimes she thinks she should herd cars and trucks, and used to. Not so much anymore. But, and she had, before this happened, she had been kicked by one of our horses and broke her leg, shattered it. And I thought we were going to have to put her down. And our great veterinarian, Bill Van Alstyne, said, no, he says, let's do some surgery, let's repair her leg. And, you know, if worse comes to worse and we have to take it, we will, but I think she'll be all right. And so he did, and she's been great. But if you're around her, you notice that she walks in a little bit of a peculiar way. You don't really notice it when she runs, but when she walks or when she sits, she kind of throws that one leg out to the side, one of her hind legs. And at any rate, when we're traveling or when we need them groomed, we take them a mile up the road to our friend up here, Chris DeLong from DeLong's Bed and Biscuit, and they groom them and they board them, and so they're very familiar with them. Well, so she goes missing. 1 day, 2 day, 3 day, 4 day. I walk all the ditches looking, you know, did she get hit? Am I going to run into her body laying in the ditch? I came back here through the woods alongside. You can kind of see out the back, and there's a creek down there. And I'm thinking maybe she fell down off of, there's some high banks, and maybe she fell down there and got hurt and is down there. I walked all those, couldn't find her. And you know what? After about 6, 7 days, you know, she's gone. Or maybe, you know, maybe she just ran off and got lost, or someone picked her up. You know, she's beautiful. I could see somebody taking her. So like on the 11th day, Casey, who works up at Chris DeLong's, was coming through the country about 10 miles from here, south of here, and get out of there, get out of there. and she saw a dog come out of the ditch. This dog, if you saw her on the beginning, she's got a white collar, she's got some white on her face. This dog was completely dark, and but she had this odd gait in her back leg. And Casey called me and said, hey, is Elfie still missing? I said, yes. This was, you know, going on 2 weeks. And she says, man, I was just coming through the country, and this dog came out of the ditch and ran out into the field. Now, it's spring. It's like April. It's before they planted, but there's no crops in the field. And she said it didn't look like her. She looked almost completely black, but she walked just like her. And I said, can you take me there right now? Can you show me where this was? And she said, yeah, come on down. So I jumped in my car, drove down there. Casey took me out and showed me this section of farmland where it was. And I said, all right, I'll drive around here and, you know, maybe bump into a miracle or something. But and I started around this one section, and I stopped. I saw out in the middle of the field, the ground was kind of gray, and it was dry. And I saw this black, almost like a dot out there, and it looked like it was moving, and I was watching it, and I thought, oh my God, you know, that could be her. So I stopped the car and I jumped out and I walked out into the field, and I'm yelling at the top of my lungs at her, and this moving dot stopped, and I could tell she heard me and was looking at me. And I called her name, and I thought, oh, you know, come on, baby, come running. And no way, she didn't move at all. She just stared at me. And I thought, oh my, how can I get out there I couldn't drive across the field in my car. And so I jumped in, and, you know, it's a section of farmland, so there's a perimeter road of about a mile around. And I started around and trying to figure out how can I get over to her. Found the road that came up on the other side. She was still standing there, and then she started to move. And I thought, oh no, she's going to move away. I'm going to lose sight of her. And I found this little, almost like a little access road, gravel, back up through the middle of the section there. And that would get me closer to where she was. And I was peeling up there, gravel flying, and my heart was kind of racing because I thought this could really be her. And I got up there closer, and I could see, A, it was a dog, you know, not a coyote, and B, except for the fact that she was so black, it looked like her. And I jumped out of the car. I was probably within 75 yards of her, and I'm yelling at her, and she's looking at me, but I can tell she either doesn't know for sure or doesn't trust. And then you start to think, well, what's this dog been through for, you know, the last week and a half? How has she eaten? You know, who has she encountered? She's been on the run. She's probably scared to death. And, hold on here. Hey, don't go in the creek. Come on. And she looked, and when my wife would call her, you know, she loved my wife like crazy, and she was fond of me, but she favored Mom, I would say. And I would yell to her when I couldn't get her in. I would yell, come see Mom, and she would always run. So I thought, okay, last resort, I'm gonna try that. I yelled, come see Mom, and she ran and jumped into my arms, and she was completely filthy and kind of wet, muddy too on the bottom half of her body, because she had been down in some creek or something. And I opened up my car with my leather interior, and I just pushed her up into the front seat, and I was practically in tears because I couldn't believe we had found her. I mean, we had both just, you know, come to the realization that we lost our dog. And oh my God, she started licking my face, and we drove home, and I put her in the garage, and I went inside and called my wife, and I said, I found Elfie. And I could hear the sadness in her voice because she wondered what ditch I had found her in. And I said, she's in our garage. And my wife couldn't believe it. And so I took her back down to DeLong's and said, Chris, you got to give her a bath and get her cleaned up. And we got her cleaned up, and I brought her home and brought her inside, and she jumped up on the couch, and she laid there, and just I sat next to her. She fell asleep almost immediately. She slept until my wife got home. She went out on the deck with us that night, and just curled by our sides, and she went back inside and slept almost continuously for 2 days. She had lost a bunch of weight. We got her food, and she started eating, and she was okay. She's never been an outside dog since. She's been an inside dog, and she's really close to me and really close to my wife, and she's a lot of fun to have around. She's just she just loves to be outside. She's got a ton of energy and just charges everywhere, and I'll try her one more time. So what she looks like is this is what she does every time we do riding shotgun. She just runs along like this, and I'm not kidding you, if I was out here for 4 hours, she'd run along for 4 hours. She never runs out of energy. She's just always going, and still harasses the horses. She didn't learn that lesson as well as I wish she had, but she doesn't chase cars and trucks anymore, and I'm grateful for that. So anyhow, all right, a little longer than usual. Sorry about the horse story if that's not, or excuse me, the dog story if that's not your thing. And appreciate you riding along today. And we made it through the snow, and that's good news. And Illinois, Wisconsin on Thursday night. And hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. I thought it was a terrific game, very entertaining. And I guess that's it. Peace out. Bye now.